You're talking to your dog, maybe explaining why you can't go for a walk yet, or just telling them about your day. And at some point, mid-sentence, they do it. The head goes sideways, one ear lifts, the eyes lock onto yours with a focus that feels almost uncomfortably attentive. You stop talking. They hold it. And for a moment, the room feels different, like something passed between you that neither of you can quite name. Why dogs tilt their head is one of the most searched questions about dog behavior, and the answer the internet gives you is usually wrong. It's not confusion. It's not a reflex. What's actually happening inside that tilted skull, in the ears, the eyes, and the parts of the brain that process faces, is something far more specific and far more revealing about what your dog is trying to do.
The standard explanation goes like this. The dog tilts its head to hear you better. The ear flap gets repositioned, the sound waves reach the inner ear at a slightly different angle, and the dog picks up more acoustic information. That explanation is not wrong, but it is dramatically incomplete. Because if hearing were the only mechanism, dogs would tilt their heads toward any interesting sound. A passing car, a bird outside the window, the refrigerator clicking on. But they don't. The head tilt happens with specific reliability in one context, when a familiar human is speaking to them directly. Not all dogs do it equally. Not all sounds trigger it. There's a pattern here that the hearing explanation doesn't account for. And when researchers started looking at which dogs tilt most and what specifically they tilt toward, what they found changed the picture entirely.
In 2021, a research team at the Family Dog Project in Budapest began studying a behavior they called relevant stimulus processing, the way dogs respond to words that carry meaning for them. They were already aware that some dogs, after extensive training, could learn the names of specific objects. What they noticed, almost accidentally, was that the dogs who had the largest vocabularies of named objects also tilted their heads most consistently when their owners spoke to them. The correlation was strong enough to investigate formally. The study, published in Animal Cognition in 2021, found that gifted word-learning dogs, dogs who knew the names of 10 or more objects, tilted their heads significantly more than dogs with smaller vocabularies when asked to retrieve a named toy. The tilt, in other words, was not a random response to sound. It was a response to meaning.
What this tells you about the tilt is important. When your dog hears you speaking, especially in a tone they associate with commands, names, or things that matter to them, their brain is not just receiving acoustic information, it is actively searching for something. A word they know, a name, a signal embedded in the stream of sound that tells them what comes next. The tilt is the outward sign of that search. It is, in the most literal sense, your dog paying attention. Not passive attention, active, effortful, vocabulary-checking attention. The Budapest team's finding was later extended by a second observation that gets even closer to what you actually experience when your dog tilts their head at you. Because the ears are only part of the story. The other part involves the eyes. And what your dog is doing with them during the tilt is something most owners have never been told. Dogs, like humans, have a visual field divided by their muzzle. The length and shape of a dog's snout determines how much of the face directly in front of them they can actually see clearly. A dog with a long muzzle, a greyhound, a collie, a German shepherd, has a significant portion of their central visual field blocked by their own nose. Research published in PLOS One in 2013 by Stanley Coren, the canine psychologist at the University of British Columbia, proposed that head tilting in dogs may partly serve to move the muzzle out of the visual field, allowing the dog to see the lower half of the human face more clearly. The mouth, the jaw, the micro-expressions that cluster around the lips and chin, which are, in humans, among the most emotionally expressive parts of the face. Your dog tilts its head, in part, to see you better. Coren's follow-up work found that brachycephalic dogs, flat-faced breeds like pugs and bulldogs, whose muzzle does not obstruct their view, tilted their heads significantly less frequently than long-muzzled dogs in response to human speech. The difference was notable. 71% of long-muzzled dogs tilted their heads often or always when spoken to, compared to 52% of flat-faced dogs. The visual obstruction hypothesis held up. But this also means the head tilt is doing two things simultaneously. It is repositioning the ear canal to improve sound localization. Which direction is the voice coming from? Where is the emphasis? While also clearing the visual field to read the speaker's face. Your dog, in the moment of the tilt, is integrating auditory and visual information about you in real time. They are building a picture, not just of what you said, but of what you meant. The dog is not confused. The dog is doing something that requires more cognitive effort than confusion does. There is a third element to the tilt that connects it to something deeper than processing. Dogs, uniquely among non-human animals, have evolved to read human faces with a left gaze bias, a preference for looking at the right side of a human face, which is controlled by the right hemisphere of the brain and tends to be more emotionally expressive. This left gaze bias in dogs, documented by researchers at the University of Lincoln in 2008, is not present when dogs look at other dogs or at objects. It activates specifically when dogs look at human faces. The head tilt, by shifting the dog's position and clearing their visual field, enhances their ability to engage in this specialized face-reading behavior. In the moment your dog tilts their head at you, they are not just hearing your words, they are reading your face, using a system that evolved specifically to read you.
Step back and consider what this means about the animal in front of you. Dogs develop the capacity for left gaze bias, for specializing in the emotional content of human faces, somewhere in the long stretch of their domestication, which began between 15 and 30,000 years ago. Wolves, their closest wild relatives, do not show this bias. It did not exist before the relationship with humans. It was shaped by that relationship, by generation after generation of dogs who paid close attention to human faces, who read expressions correctly, who understood the difference between a welcoming tone and a warning one, and who survived and reproduced because of that understanding. The head tilt is an old behavior, older than any specific dog you could name. It is a posture that your dog's ancestors refined over thousands of years of watching the people they lived with.
A study from the journal Learning and Behavior, published in 2022, found that dogs who were shown videos of human faces, specifically faces displaying emotional expressions, oriented their gaze toward the emotionally expressive side of the face significantly more than toward the neutral side. They were, the researchers concluded, actively seeking emotional information, not just reacting to it, seeking it. What this means practically is that when your dog tilts their head toward you as you speak, they are not waiting for a command. They are not simply listening for a keyword. They are gathering information about your emotional state, combining what they hear in your voice with what they can read in your face in order to understand not just what you are saying, but how you are saying it and what that means for what happens next. When did you last think of your dog as someone who was actively trying to understand your emotional state? You are talking to your dog. The same room, the same half explanation about the walk or the day, or something you needed to say out loud. And they tilt their head. You know now what is happening. The ear canal is repositioning, finding the emphasis in your voice, the intonation that tells them whether this is information or an invitation. The muzzle is moving out of the visual field so that your face, the lower half where expression pools and concentrates, comes into clearer view. The left gaze system is activating, the one that evolved specifically for this, specifically for reading you. And somewhere in the brain, behind those attentive eyes, your words are being measured against a vocabulary of things that matter, names they know, tones they recognize, words that have meant something before. The head tilt is not a cute trick. It is not your dog being endearing, though it is that too. It is your dog working. It is the visible sign of a cognitive effort that is simultaneously auditory, visual, and emotional. An effort to build an accurate model of what you mean, not just what you said. Dogs do this because they evolved to, because the ones who did it well were the ones who understood their humans more accurately, who anticipated what was coming, who stayed close and stayed trusted. The tilt is the posture of an animal that has been trying to understand us for longer than civilization has existed. And when your dog looks at you sideways, one ear raised, eye steady, they are doing exactly what they were shaped across thousands of years to do. They are listening completely to you.
If this changed the way you see that moment, the tilt, the pause, the eyes holding yours, then the next video on this channel takes it one step further. It follows the science of what your dog does with their eyes specifically during sustained eye contact, and what happens in both of your bodies during those few quiet seconds. The research there is more surprising and more moving than anything in this video. The link is just above. And if your dog is nearby right now, if they tilted their head at any point while you listen to this, look at them for a moment before you click. They have been paying attention. They always have been.